Dee,
How's it going?
good man. How you doing?
Yeah, can't complain. How's it rolling down under?
It's rolling and it's good. It's evening. We had a beautiful day here, and so all is well in the hood. And we're back in action, man. We've got another interesting talk to have with a really interesting fella, and on the back of a really great interview last week. As well, and coincidentally in the same city. And so why don't we go ahead and get this guest introduced the way that we do? Do you want to run us through that?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. So we're going to be chatting to DVK The Artist today. And he's an acclaimed multidisciplinary artist and curator whose profound artistic prowess has captivated audiences worldwide through compelling exhibitions. Let me share my screen and show you guys a little bit more about what we are going to be looking at today and who we're going to be talking to. He's got some pretty outstanding pieces of work out. I think that you're more familiar with what he's done, Dave, in regards to how he blends AI and sort of his own skill set to sort of, drawing inspiration from expressionism and Nordic noir, futurism, all of that good stuff. So it's going to be really interesting having a chat with DVK.
Even look at that piece there, D. Like, if you look at that, just look at the lighting on that. Right. It's really reminiscent of like impressionistic. It's got incredible, like this glaze over it. Like, are you looking through ice? Are you looking through a glass with ice on it, or sort of a really imperfect glass window or something? So the stuff he's doing is really, and we'll obviously get into that with him about his process and his inspirations and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it's I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, he is affiliated with the Tech Contemporary that we spoke to last week with Emil. So it'll be interesting to hear a little bit more about his relationship with that digital art gallery, and just learn a little bit more about the artist himself and what he's working on and all of that good stuff. So I think let's not wait any longer. Let's maybe just get him on the call and have a chat.
All right, cool. Well, I think he's waiting in the wings right now. So let me just open up the door and welcome DVK. There he is, DVK.
Hey guys.
Hey,
how's life?
It's great. Yeah, I'm super busy. And how about you guys?
Yeah, same, man. Not stopping at all. So that's great. What have you been busy with? What have you been busy with? You got a collection, or what are you working on?
Yeah. So I'm working on this collection for an exhibition here, and it's landing next week on Friday. We're opening the new gallery. So that's the official opening. And then I'm working on some other exhibitions, and I'm working for shows coming over the summer this year. So super busy. Lots of artwork in the laboratory,
In the lab.
Yeah,
that's it. Well, look, we had Dee do a bit of an overview of your work on the Splash platform, just given a very, very high level introduction. But if you don't mind, let's just give us your background, man. Like you grew up as an artist, didn't you? Like, you come from an artistic family, and like, tell us a bit about that and sort of your journey from there until now in this whole new crazy world.
Yeah. Well, so since I'm around 3 years old, I've always been interested in the digital art because of the computer. My dad, he got a computer, one of the really early versions of Windows, and got all the programs there. And whenever I could get to it, I was just jumping on and then painting and drawing in all of these different programs there. And it's just been developing since that. So in school, I've always been favorite, a big fan of the artwork programs and studying and playing around with everything there. And actually, in those elementary school years, my teachers there, they always hated me because I wasn't doing the original, the job you're supposed to. I was doing something way more complicated because it was just boring and simple.
Yeah.
I don't want to draw stickmen. Now I'm doing something complicated, like
outside of the lines.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to do something simple. I'm just drawing a whole skull or whatever, something super detailed and everything,
Right.
stuff like this. A little bit of a rebel always in those years, doing things my way, always like that. And then, as all these kind of programs have been developing, Photoshop and 3D programs like ZBrush, I've always been very interested in figuring out how all these programs work. So whenever there's something new, been getting that somehow, and then just learning it myself, learn by doing and practicing all these programs. And that's been my way mostly.
Yeah, cool. And your folks are both artists as well, aren't they? Or you grew up with a lot of artistic people around you?
Yeah. So my dad, he's a traditional oil painter and an architect. So there's been a lot of, you can say, both sides of the handcraft of how to paint. Been learning all of that, and of course with all of the different options, acrylic to watercolor and oil painting, of course. And I've been having the mix of being learning also craft in let's say wood and building things because of the architecture, and as a kid I would go with my dad to some of these building grounds, and then just you can't, as a kid, just studying all these things, you can't avoid learning some things, and that's of course as well been a great reason for my interest in architecture, and then combining that with art.
Yeah. And so your dad is then presumably very supportive of what you're doing in terms of your career.
Yeah, definitely. And of course he's extremely interested in everything that's going on there, because he didn't pursue it in the same way as I did. He was more focused on the architecture, but as well also he was never as interested in the digital or in everything related to the computer. And of course it's a different generation, so it's a little bit more difficult typically. But yeah, he's very interested in everything, and it's the exhibitions and where I've been going, and hearing all of these, and of course generally seeing the work I'm putting out.
Yeah, cool. Well, look, I really want to get into your process, because I know that that's something, just having some of the conversations that I've had when people knew you were coming on the show, one of the things that everybody's really interested in is your process, right? And so we'll do our little rabbit hole dive into AI and what that's all about. But your background in traditional painting, and your background in just actually more physical craftsmanship, whether that's woodworking, painting, or otherwise. I mean, tell us about your process, and tell us, maybe before we get into the deep AI stuff, how does that impact how you're actually producing things, that experience you have with traditional painting methodologies?
So having the traditional experience and a graphic design background, of course, that helps a lot with, understanding the color compositions and how you have all these put together with the foreground and middle ground, background, all of these details to just, you could say, standard create a piece that looks good.
Yeah.
So, you could give AI to any kind of guy, and then maybe it wouldn't be as good because they don't have that kind of experience from the start. And then, well, with my experience as well, from texture and everything with oil painting and abstractions, and going to all of these different exhibitions all over the world, and in particular, of course, in Denmark, the more you look at art and the more you try to understand the different styles, the more you can use that in your own process. And so, in a part of my process there, when I've been using AI, I'm taking my piece when I'm, in my finishing, and editing details and so on, taking it into Photoshop and painting on top of it. And there I'm, getting the perfection of all the details and the texture and everything, so that it looks good.
Yeah. So there's sort of two sides to that, right? There's kind of the side of just being able to select elements that provide good color composition, good color contrast, and then general composition of a piece, and then being able to understand what works, and what's interesting and what's compelling from the exposure you've had to all these different artists and art pieces from the real world. But then there's actually a technique element as well that you're able to apply when you get into Photoshop.
Yes.
Are you using a brush or a stylus, or what's the actual tool you're using?
Yeah, so I have this screen, where you tilt it and then you can paint directly on the screen. And then I'm making my own brushes for Photoshop. So yeah, I have everything, you can say, in a unique sense that nobody else has it in the same style as I have. But everybody could go and make their own brushes. That's not particularly unique, but it's unique when you have your own brushes, so that nobody could do the exact same strokes.
Yeah. And that's in combination with all the other unique stuff that you've done. And we've talked a little bit about your process and sort of the DVK upscaling approach and these kinds of things. So take us back, if you could, to the beginning of your process. What inspires you? How are you sort of extracting a concept that is then leading into the beginnings of a piece with AI augmentation, and then talk a bit about the hardware and sort of the heavy work that's going on there in terms of the upscaling and the processing.
All right, let's take it one by one. But so the first part, for example, here, this particular exhibition, the pieces are a lot about how we are in contrast now in the world to the Renaissance, where a singular person can become so much more, you can say relatively not easy, but there is less barriers. Let's say from where you are now, you can do a podcast with a person across the planet. Anybody in the world could be watching this. But the same, let's say young people could be doing TikToks and becoming world famous from these things. So the barriers to become something or to change your life are different, so much different today than they were in, let's say hundreds of years ago. And then there's some of the things that I'm really interested in is the development of technology, and I'm kind of fascinated by how we've come to a point with computers, and if you don't have to go that far back, and then it was just like a horse wagon people were going around with, and so this development has just been, for me at least, completely insane. It's just going straight up, and so that's particularly some of the elements that I'm trying to implement there.
Yeah, those are the themes that you're exploring, right? I had a thought there as you were describing that. They say, when you think about some of the individuals in history that were most knowledgeable or that were most skillful across multiple disciplines, right? You think that I heard once that Aristotle was the last living person that actually knew everything at the time, right? Because the amount of information we have at our fingertips now, as it were, is just so enormous that no human being can sort of contain that in their skull. Aristotle was kind of the last one. And then you think, fast forward, you're talking Renaissance, and you go to, folks like, Da Vinci is an obvious example of somebody who just had mastery over so many different domains of knowledge. And he had the luxury, and for whatever reason, of being able to explore those. Francis Bacon and some of these other folks that had that really incredible versatility. And now what we're talking about is not necessarily does every individual have those natural talents, but what every individual does have, not every individual, but increasingly, is access to the tools, right? The tools of production, the tools of distribution, right? The tools of being able to engage commercially, right? And those are some of the themes that you're kind of exploring, right?
Yes, that's a very good way to put it. And then to put even more on top of this, what you're just saying is that with AI, all of these educations you would need to have information. Well, with AI, you can just ask it, and then you will have the answer immediately. Exactly. So that's just like, it removes a lot of barriers. Exactly. That's the thing. That so some of these things that, let's say for Aristotle, for example, he'd been studying his entire life, but now you could have some of those answers immediately.
Aristotle lives in the AI, right?
Yeah, well, he does. That's for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of information that he's been through in there.
I have a quick question though. As far as the AI prompting goes, do you use English, or are you doing that in Danish, or like, well, what's the process look like for you with the prompting?
I'm always using English, to be honest. Okay. And I think I use English a lot more in my life than Danish, actually, because of being so busy with artists around the world and galleries and so on. So I'm really used to using English all the time.
That's an interesting question, Dee. Does that provide you a better potential output? And I'm just guessing. I know that these models, many of the larger language models now are translating super effectively, but presumably the predominant body of knowledge that these were trained on is English inputs first, right? Just in the sense that a lot of those models that you'd be using came out of the United States, and a lot of the internet content is English first. Do you think that that's an advantage for you, or does it really matter because the translation's so good now?
I believe it still does matter. I believe so.
Yeah.
I'm not testing that much in other languages, but some of my colleagues have been testing and so on.
Yeah.
But I believe, it's definitely better with English, for example. Well, what I want to say is that also, as you're writing a prompt, you could consider it like you're talking to the computer. You're writing.
Very natural.
Yeah, but you also have to consider the way you put the order of the sentence and the wording. So if you changed even for example, the first word of your prompt matters a lot.
Yeah.
And if you change that word, it changes the entire outcome.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like,
if you know how the neural network works, right? Is there a priority assigned to that initial word? And if that initial word is a noun or something else, how does that then cascade through the network to produce different output?
There's like a ripple effect of what words you're choosing. Yeah. So the more experience you have in prompting, the better you also understand the outcome, and the more precise your prompts will be. Yeah. So you could say that there is some science to prompting, and there is a lot of knowledge to be had there, and in order to do the perfect results.
Yeah, it's not just what you know, it's how you're prompting, right? It's not just about what you know, the knowledge that you're using. That's prompting is a whole nother skill set, as you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me at least, it's extremely interesting. But then how you can then figure out ways to combine the prompts and combine the outputs from different AIs, because then you can have completely unique results. Let's say you've both heard of Midjourney, for example, and if you mix, let's say, the output from Midjourney with, let's say, Stable Diffusion or DALL-E or one of the other AI, you will get completely unique outputs that you can't get without it, because, for example, Midjourney can't do it alone, or DALL-E can't do that alone. Yeah. So even that, you suddenly already differentiate yourself from other artists, because many of them, they don't even do that. They just go from straight to prompt. And then I'm doing things like this. I'm using different kinds of AI. And then I'm as well upscaling with my own tools, or again, that's something nobody else can do because only I have this tool. So that's part of my process.
I want to get into that a bit, but I want to just let's stay with AI a little bit, because what you've just said there about using these different AI tools. So for one thing, they all have their different constraints and the different trade-offs in design that their developers had made in terms of the training or in terms of the actual, the model that they're using. And so in that sense, they're very different. And also what you could apply is you could sort of train them in unique ways. And so you've got like almost like you can orchestrate these different collaborators, in coming up with your concepts, and you can sort of use them as these different collaborators that you're bringing together, with their inputs and with different, like an orchestrator would in a
start your own band.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's it. And you can sort of draw on their strengths and then blend them in really unique and interesting ways. So that's very interesting. That's fascinating. And AI prompt engineering it's part science, because knowing the mathematics of the model and how it's structured and all that, but it's also poetry and psychology, right? At the end of the day, there's a lot of that in there, because you're essentially tapping into the brain of that AI to extract, something that you're looking for, which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine some of the brightest mind. Like imagine Aristotle is alive today and prompting. Yeah. I mean, I think he would have a blast with it.
Totally.
He would have a good time, but figuring it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a bit about that next step. So we've talked about that the themes that you're exploring in this existing collection, right? And then a little bit about that AI prompt engineering to get those initial images that you're working with. But then you're not just taking those images, you're upscaling those images, but you're doing that in a unique way or in a proprietary way. So can you share a bit about that?
Yeah. So first of all, upscaling is not exactly a brand new thing, but for the past few years, there has not been really any particularly strong upscaling, and most of them have been the original ones were called GAN upscaling, and they kind of go in and edit the pieces and give them small nuances and details, but then the most used, for example, has been one called Gigapixel, and that one basically just splits the pixels apart into more pixels and then tries to smooth that out a little bit.
Right.
What I figured out is that if you take some of these different older tools and upscale with all of them, and then take all of these different pieces into Photoshop, there I've developed myself an extension that then uses AI to scan across these different ones and see which parts of it has more interesting details, and then put those together automatically. So let's say I have 5 different layers of the same image, and it looks across them which ones have something interesting, and puts that together. And then one of my latest developments there in relation to this is where I have the AI upscale with tremendous amount of details extra. So I'm prompting and telling it what extra details I want on top of the original image, and then doing this in different versions. So that let's say the first version, maybe I'm focusing on adding Renaissance related faces or personas in there, hidden people somewhere in my piece, or it could be masses of people who is watching, or something related to the story. It could be I made a piece with an octopus, and then there would be bubbles and a small fish and something around it in the water. So it's options on how you would like the end result to be.
And that is like super intense in terms of the processing that goes into it, right? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah. Yes. So imagine that you have a piece that is, let's say, 1,000 by 1,000 pixels, but you want it to be 8,000 by 8,000 pixels or 20,000 pixels. And then the more pixels you want it to be, the longer time it takes. But it could take, for some of these, just I developed this, and then the computer starts upscaling, and it's sitting on my computer and working through this, and it takes 24 hours to just upscale one piece. Wow. And then let's say if it's not how I want it to be, then I just have to start all over. So you can see just that part of the process can take a really long time.
Right. And the computers you're using right there, are they pretty standard GPUs that are running it, or is it even a GPU problem? Is it a CPU problem? What's happening in the hardware?
So of course it's mainly the GPU that really needs to be good. I have 4 computers here running and upscaling all day because it takes that long time. Right. I have NVIDIA 4070, so it's not the 4090, but it's one of the newest versions of the NVIDIA graphic card. It's pretty good, and it runs it relatively fast.
Well, I'd like to get into sort of valuing, a piece of art later on in the conversation, but that gives me the idea that it's almost like the Bitcoin argument, right? We're actually using energy in order to create this piece. And
yes.
therein is part of the actual value of this piece, is that we're converting pure energy into this visual output. So that's interesting.
Yeah, into art.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. So you talked a bit about your thematics that you're exploring, but then let's get a little bit into your inspiration. So when I look at some of your pieces, and I think that others have commented similarly, you can see influences of Monet. For example, this piece here. I'm going to get Danny, the producer, to put that piece of the lady, that really beautiful lady with the tones of blue and
yeah.
So that piece here is when we showed that, when we were in Copenhagen at the Inner Art Fair, people were walking up and fascinated by the brush strokes, and it's very reminiscent of Monet styled brush strokes, right, or different impressionist styled brush stroke. Some of the other pieces, for example, the boy who bridged eras, that piece.
Yeah,
is there's a Renoir as sort of lighting and sort of a tone to some of the colors that have been chosen there. So talk about how that, and presumably some of that goes into the prompting, but then some of that comes from the different traditions of art or the different artists that you admire. So could you talk a bit about that? Where are you drawing the stylistic influences from, and how does that work?
So first of all, I've already told you before, but one of my favorite artists that I've always admired was Otto Fallo, he's actually a Danish artist. And yeah, I don't remember when I've seen his artwork the first, but I haven't been very old at that time. And it's one of the main thing about his artwork is that he always adds a lot of details, and there's details everywhere. He has this piece with the amber forest where you imagine it's like a Pleistocene era for a jungle with all kinds of animals. There's some dinosaur. I have the piece on my wall here. It's a print, and there's there's all these kind of bugs and little lizards and everything. But I think if you would be counting all of those kind of details all over the piece, there's probably 100.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so that's something that fascinates me, and that's where I've been trying to get all. Yeah, that's where I've been trying to get all of these little details in there. That's one of the things. I mean, and I would say the reason for that is, and one of the things that I like about that part is that, and I'm not saying I don't like simple artwork, but let's say you have a simple piece. Let's say, I don't know if you know Murad Pak, but he's doing these, his typical pieces, they're black, and then maybe there's a circle on the middle, and that's it.
Yeah.
And okay, you look at it once, you take one look at it, and then I would say you feel like you know the piece, you've seen it, you've recognized it, you've memorized it, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I'd like for art to be something you could look at forever and feel like, wow, I found some. You could look at it every day and you will find something new that you didn't notice, or maybe you didn't find something every day, but the next day maybe you find something.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, some of that really minimalistic stuff is the stuff that I enjoy. There is more like Mark Rothko, right? The way he's doing these gradients of colors, and therein that gradient there exists an infinite number of sort of details or experiences, right, in a way. But what you're doing is you're providing this super rich universe of detail.
Yeah.
And for example, the one piece that I call Urbanus, it's the bearded man with the cityscapes all over his head, like that. Like you can just sort of go into that. You can see these different elements of the city, and it tells a story. Like even the expressions on his face, tell a story. But there's such great detail that you can dive into that piece for a long time.
Yeah. So, for example, what Mark Rothko does is, he's trying to convey the emotion through the colors specifically, and then simplifying it. And I like to do that as well with colors. I have a piece behind me here that's one of mine, and that's also with, focus on the colors and emotion like that. So that's something I'm very familiar with and work a lot with. But then what I like to do is just try and combine that and add some of the colors and then the details on top of it. And for me, that's the lasting experience of the piece.
Interesting. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the technology, not your technology specifically, but blockchain and NFT, and why is an NFT a useful thing for an artist? How did you come into that world? What was that journey of discovery of blockchain broadly, and then NFTs as a substrate for art? Where's your thinking on that, and what's that journey been?
Yeah, so I've already before I got into NFTs and all that, I was already working a lot with the social media and online and so on. But there, let's say if you use Instagram and so on, there's not so much connection with other artists. And what I figured out with the NFT space and that area of the whole thing, what's going on X and Twitter, there's so much connection between the artists and collectors, and in the opportunity to work with other artists and meet with other artists and learn from other artists, but also give and teach others. This whole community part, that's what really caught me on there. What was really interesting, because as in a life as an artist, you could, I don't think that I'm alone with this, but you could be quite lonely, because nobody else, like my friends, they don't give a shit about art. Nobody cares about, a lot of people don't care about art. And then there's people who are extremely interested in art. And then as soon as I saw what I experienced when I entered this space is just everybody else there, they want to talk about the art. They want to tell their story, or they want to listen to your story. They're extremely curious and interested all the way around in this.
So the entry point was social rather than technical, right? So you met this community online that was like, oh my God, everybody's really collaborative, really interested, really curious. And that was sort of your entry point. And then was there somebody in there that pointed you to NFTs, or did you see the Beeple and go, holy shit, I can sell something like that? Or what was that?
Okay, so for that part, what I was recognizing there is that I'm focused on the decentralization, but I'm focused in the sense that we have a system today, you have it there with the government. We have it here. You have a government, you pay your taxes and so on, and you have to go to work. And you grow up, you're getting some education, and then you have to get a job, and you work your entire life, and then you die. That's it. Kind of like that. And for me as an artist, as a creative person, I can't live without the art at all. It's important for me. That's
your lifeblood.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't necessarily fit into the normal system of life. And for a lot of these artistic people, when you go through school, you put in a box and you're being told how you have to be and so on. And it just shapes you differently so that you don't expect or don't believe in being an artist. And what I'm seeing here with this, the NFT space and everything going on there, that a start on a development of a future where it's possible to be different things than what is society telling you to be.
It's kind of that alternative system, right? Socioeconomic system that allows you to sort of pursue the life that you want to pursue and the living that you want to pursue.
But it doesn't only have to be through specific paintings or that kind of art. It could be with music and many other things. As a poet and a writer, there's still very unlimited, and you just have to figure out a way to get it out to people.
And that's really what we're fascinated by, and why we started this whole podcast is just, it's all all of the ethos of Web3, right? All of the things that it will do for individuals in terms of liberation and just liberating individuals to pursue the most meaningful lives that they can. And also, frankly, what I think can be offered socially on a broader sense is that some of these ecosystems, some of these tools, some of these platforms, for example, that allow for on-chain governance or distributed organizations and for participation in a different way that is a departure from the existing political systems, the existing sort of ways of decision making that really we've become very disappointed in and disillusioned with, as humanity, I'd say broadly. So yeah, that's cool, man. So look, tell us about what's coming up for you. You've got this event coming up. What's that about? It's going to be at Tech Contemporary. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So this is next Friday. It's opening the gallery, and there's exhibiting in the center of Copenhagen, and we've planned it so that in collaboration with Hans, who is the curator and gallerist, Hans Alf, he's got another exhibition in his other gallery next door. So we're gonna be inviting people to both the exhibitions to see.
Cool.
So potentially double up the visitors for both artists.
Cool.
And so I'm gonna have 8 new pieces for this small collection, and we're gonna use an exhibit on these AnyWall screens that you, of course, know about, David.
Yes. Tell us about those, man. How do they look?
Well, first of all, there's this 98.5 inch screen. Is huge, and it's beautiful. It's extremely detailed, the way it can show the art, and I'm very honored to be one of the first artists to exhibit on these screens. And I feel as well, of course, my work is very well presented on these screens because of all the details that you can better see them on a screen like this when it's when it's big and when it's very high quality. So
you're gonna have to keep up with your upscaling and see how big we can take the screens with all your upscaling.
Well, unlimited, because how big can you make the screen?
How many pixels do you want?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How many pixels do you want? I just have to make it work for a week, no problem.
Well, we felt very lucky that we found you, man. And I'm actually trying to think about how did that evolve? We met online before we came to Copenhagen, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we did.
And then we said we're going to be at Enter Art Fair, and then you connected us with other artists, and we sort of got a group together. Just what we were saying earlier about the collaborative spirit of people in Web3, right?
Yeah. It's like sort of coincidences within coincidences, and ripple effect that these kind of artists with a good heart, just in. Letting each other know each other, or you could say, helping each other connect with the people that you may need to work with, basically.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah.
So you've got the event coming up. You're going to show 8 of these pieces. Does the collection have a name?
Yeah, Control Alt Create.
Okay, cool. Control Alt Create. Yeah, I love it. Awesome. So they're going to be up there, and you're going to be selling these pieces at the event?
Yeah, immediately.
Okay, great.
Nice.
What, are you minting them on a specific chain, or what's the story there?
Yeah, so the pieces will be minted on Concordium. If some collector are interested in it, they can be minted on Ethereum instead. But mainly it's the focus on Concordium with the Contemporary, which is related to Concordium there.
It's a Danish homegrown blockchain, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a Danish person, and I'm also very interested in
local.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm very interested in that, and putting, you could say, Denmark on put a landmark on the world of NFTs with Denmark there. Yeah. I'm very interested in that part of course as well, and the whole market in the north, opening up that and showing the people here that we can do something interesting. And the part with Concordium is that you have to do KYC in order to to use it. And of course, a lot of people in crypto and so on, they're against that. And I understand that part because it's about the freedom and being allowed to be anonymous and so on.
Yeah.
But in order to convince the people here in the North, at least, about it being, not only used for criminal stuff, then I believe it's a good way to start it. And then we can go from there. We can see that, at first we can show people, okay, this is real. You can use this and in so many different purposes, not only for art, but for the blockchain can have a lot of purposes.
Hey, you got to cater to your audience, right?
Yeah, of course that as well. Of course that as well.
Slow baby steps.
Yeah.
Do you run into that question often, DVK, from potential collectors? And you may have run into this multiple times at the art fair in Copenhagen, at the Outdoor Art Fair when we were there together, because a lot of the folks that were, visiting the art fair are not that familiar with digital art broadly as a category of art.
No.
And they're certainly not familiar with tokenization or with the blockchain, right?
Yeah. So for most of those, I'm kind of trying to, of course, immediately explain about the handcraft part, that it's also part of it when you paint on the screen. There's no, I wouldn't say that there's no less. I mean, you need to know a lot of different things in order to do digital artworks, just like when you're painting with oil. And for the blockchain part, if you explain to people what it really is about, like you could say it's a digital signature that can always prove that this piece is an original, and as well, if you collected the piece, you can prove that you own the piece, because this is your wallet. I mean, it's right there.
Yeah.
So you can always prove that you're the actual owner of this Picasso or DVK, if that's the case.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's for me. That's very simple. I mean, and people usually understand that.
Yeah, yeah. The way that I explain it, I was talking about this with Aaron from Curate the other day. Is I explain it as this is the canvas, right? This is the substrate, the canvas that the art is on. And so, if you want to pick it up and sell it or move it to somebody else, this is it. This is the original. But some of the things I know that the guys at Curate are doing are providing this additional features that you can only access in terms of the display software, in terms of playing audio, in terms of even renting out the pieces. There's a rental model to the Curate platform that you can only really access if you own the NFT. You can't do it with just a JPEG. You have to have the NFT. It's got to be on chain. And then you get the capability of doing these other things, of using these other tools, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So on that, there was a point, I think it must have been last year, with I think it was one of these platforms where you could put, if you have your NFT for sale, as long as you have it for sale, whilst it's not selling, you would be earning a revenue for having it for sale on their platform.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's very cool.
So there was this guy who had at that point around 350 apes.
Right.
So imagine he had all of those for sale constantly. Sometimes maybe one of them would sell because you had to have it for sale so that it could be sold.
Yeah.
But as long as you're of course, there was also a limit to how much you could put it for sale above the average price of these specific pieces.
Yeah.
But imagine that overnight he would earn about $500 per piece. So
madness.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's like staking your art, right?
It is, staking, but just like with NFTs that are being sold, and that's really interesting. Wow, I should have fooled up on more NFTs instead of speculating with crypto or even staking for that matter.
Instead of your Doge bag. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, look, DVK, that's really great, man, that you've got the event coming up at Tech Contemporary. We'll put some of the information about that up in the podcast and in the show notes so people know. I've got a couple folks, I'm not sure what the invite list looks like, but I've got a couple folks that have asked me if they could come. So I'll send you a DM and see if you can get them an invite, because I'm sure they'd be really, really great people to meet as well. They're
Absolutely
seen there. So, anything else that you want to let us know before we sign off here? Is there anything else that you'd like to share, or where can people find you if they're trying to learn more?
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter. Just search for DVK The Artist. You can also search for my website. Is dvktheartist.xyz.
Okay, awesome. So we'll put that on the screen as well.
Thank you.
Great. Good to see you again, man. Have a great show next week. And
you too.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck with the exhibition.
Thanks for the invitation here.
We'll catch up for a beer.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
Take care. There you go, DVK The Artist.
Awesome. Yeah, that was excellent having a chat to him and learning a little bit more about his influences and how he goes about his process and what he does. I really liked sort of the philosophy behind decentralization. I was just thinking at that point, it's kind of like taking the red pill, right? Like that's kind of where we are. That's the crossroads of society with sort of, you know, this battle between good and evil, as it were, with governments and the middleman to like peer-to-peer, you know. So yeah, it's really interesting to hear, and hopefully his exhibition goes well, and we'll be sure to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, man, he has got to be the hardest working man in digital art, because when we were at the Inner Art Fair, just, you know, we were there, we were watching the whole event go. He was putting in literally like 10 hours a day on his feet, talking to the coming by. He loved seeing his art up on the AnyWall screens. He loved having people come by and ask questions. He's so passionate about it, and he's a great advocate. Yeah. And I know that he's helped out quite a lot of other artists to learn and to get connected, and certainly he's connected a lot with us. So yeah, like I said, hardest working man in digital art, and fantastic works that he has. So we'll make sure that people have the links to check him out. So that is us for this episode of The Great Wave, D.
Yeah, that is us. And I guess we'll catch you guys next week, and we'll look forward to it. Like always, it's brilliant just chatting about all of this stuff and learning from all of these people. And as you said as well, part of our mission is, we just want to be a part of the community. We want to learn, we want to share the information and make sure that we can bring everybody together. And I hope that's what we're accomplishing with all of this.
Share the love, catch the wave. Catch you next week.